This is the brand new M5 iPad Pro. With everything that you loved about last year's iPad Pro, but now with more horsepower under the hood. And today, we're going to review it. It was about a year and a half ago when Apple redesigned the iPad Pro. It was a slight update to the design that was already working really well. It was a touch thinner, it worked with the new Apple Pencil Pro, and worked with a redesigned, sturdier Magic Keyboard cover. This new iPad Pro at first glance looks identical to last year's model. It even comes in the same box. The only physical difference from the outside be the removal of some text that was along the back. And yeah, I know, I can totally see it. There are antenna lines here. That was on last year's version too. It's just that my personal iPad isn't the cellular version. This one is the one I was sent for testing. I do kind of wish they had included a door along the back because I have no idea how to get out of here. The core features that made the last iPad a big upgrade are still present here. This is a Tandem OLED display. It is beautiful and it gets crazy bright. 1600 nits of peak brightness, a 2,000,000:1 contrast ratio. It just looks absolutely stunning. There's no other way to say it. Even at half the brightness, it gets just as bright as my MacBook Pro does at full brightness. I have to dim this thing way down to even just film it so it doesn't blow out my camera. So what has changed on this new iPad then? Well, the big upgrade is the processor. This has Apple's new M5. As you can see from these very sophisticated charts, the numbers went up. But the number that matters to me the most right now is the number 12. Because that's how many bears there are here right now. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little freaked out. 12 is also the number of gigs of RAM that comes on the base iPad Pro now. Now if you decide to upgrade, jump up to a 1 or 2 terabyte storage configuration, you get 16 gigabytes to go along with that. That's actually the same as getting a 1 or 2 terabyte config from the last generation too. RAM is the limiting factor in a lot of creative apps. The M4 iPad came with 8 gigabytes of RAM. So 4 more gigs doesn't sound like a big deal, but it can give you a lot of overhead in some situations. Now before I go any further, I want to stress, this is a review in progress, because many of the things that I want to test in terms of performance, I just can't test right now. I think synthetic benchmarks can give you a general idea of how something will perform or how much better it is than the last generation, but I really want to get into the apps and see how they perform. And since I'm using this iPad before it's available to the public, the apps that would really stress this thing out haven't been updated yet to take advantage of the M5. So I'll be doing a follow-up video in a few weeks with more details on that sort of thing. Now here's an example of what I am planning on testing. I make a lot of little animations in my videos, like this one of a bear trying to break through a Gorilla Glass screen. And my canvases in Procreate are 4K. That's 3,840 pixels by 2,160 pixels. In Procreate on my M4 iPad with 8 gigabytes of RAM, I get 122 layers at that size. That's plenty for me and the work that I do, but on this new iPad, I would expect to get around 180 layers with all the extra RAM that comes on the base model. That's my guesstimate. And also the type of thing that I need to test and follow up on. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Now, as my canvases go up in size, the number of layers I get goes down. So if I double my canvas size to 8K, technically I think this is 4 times bigger, but it would be 7,680 by 4,320. Now I would get 27 layers on the M4, and I would guess around 40 on the M5. The bigger the canvas, the less layers. This doesn't just affect Procreate, but affects a lot of apps. For example, ZBrush, 3D modeling app. The more RAM you have, the more polygons you're going to get to work with. And it's not just the processor they've updated, they've bumped up some other specs here too. This iPad now supports Wi-Fi 7. It supports external displays up to 6K at 60 Hz and 4K at 120 Hz. The storage speed is faster here. They have 2 times the read-write speed as before. And what I think a lot of people are going to appreciate about the new iPad Pro is that it now supports fast charging. You can charge half the battery in about a half hour. Now there is one curious thing about this fast charging. This iPad still comes with the same 20-watt charger the last one did. So if you really want this to charge faster, you have to fork over some money and buy a faster charger. Okay, that's the Apple Pencil. It's not for bears. I can't use it. I tried taking some drawing classes, they were too hard. Right? That happened to me too. There's some amazing tutorials here on YouTube, just great. But sometimes they're just over my head. That's why I created my Learn to Draw in 60 Days course. It's really designed to give you the fundamentals and a foundation, so you have a little bit of experience that allows you to take on those more challenging art classes. Will it work for me? You know, I don't think the Apple Pencil is bear-proof, but if you want to know more, check out that and my other courses over at bradsartschool.com. What I think is the most meaningful change to this iPad isn't the hardware, but the software. The iPad has slowly but surely over time become way more laptop-y. Every year we see a few more pro-level apps trickle out to the device, and Apple has been doing some updates to the OS, their file system, to be more sophisticated. They've been making it more user-friendly to keyboards and trackpads too. They've even experimented with features like Stage Manager, which I would describe as like a controlled multitasking mode. I didn't really care for it. I thought it was just a touch too restrictive, but it was a really important step because it paved the way to this new Windows apt interface that has arrived on iPad OS 26. You can swipe up from the corner of any app, start resizing it as you need, move it around to where you want it, and on an iPad, even as big as this 13-inch screen that I have here, it still feels a little claustrophobic when you're using these new windows. iPad apps are just designed to take up the whole screen, so when you start shrinking them down, sometimes you lose stuff. But where I think this mode really shines is when you connect your iPad to an external monitor. This is the first time the iPad has really felt like a multitasking computer to me instead of just a single task device. I mean, of course, I would multitask before on an iPad, but this is a little bit different. It's not just like having a photo open on a web page while drawing on the other side, or looking at a website for specs while typing out a script on the other side of the screen. Being able to have more than 2 apps visible at a time makes working a lot easier. And now the promise of the Magic Keyboard really is fulfilled. It's always felt like a cool accessory that's made typing easier and heck, a lot faster. But with all the multi-touch features that they baked into the trackpad, moving around the interface is just kind of fun. It's really an interesting UX balance that Apple's got going on here. The iPad, when you don't have the keyboard attached, totally a finger-first device. But when you start to add some of the accessories, the pencil, the Magic Keyboard, and external monitor, it starts to feel like a power user tool. It's not totally all the way there yet, but boy has it taken a big step forward. Now this is the same keyboard design as last time, so here's my too long didn't read on that review. It's fun to type on. They made it a little thicker so it feels like there's more key travel. Not sure if there is or not, but it feels like it. The keyboard cover does negate some of the super thinness of the iPad, and it feels much more like a laptop, especially when it's folded up. It almost doubles the weight and definitely doubles the thickness. It's really nice to type on when you have it on a table. However, I will say when I have it on my lap and I'm typing there, it's really kind of top heavy. It wants to fall backwards unless my palms are resting on it and holding it down. The Achilles heel to all of this is that the iPad is really dependent on its apps to take advantage of all this UI fanciness. Apple can provide as seamless of an experience as they want in their own apps, but when you jump over to third-party apps, it gets a little hit or miss. I use Google Docs a lot, and text selecting, cursor placement, it's just wonky. And that kind of jank is not Apple's fault, but it's also the experience that you're gonna have. When I was testing out some games, this is Assassin's Creed, it just wouldn't recognize the keyboard at all. This seems to be really apparent in apps that weren't natively designed for the iPad, but ported over to the iPad. Now, speaking of games, this is another area I wanted to test out because I thought it was another area where it would really push this M5 processor. Destiny Rising is a game I've been using a lot on Android devices this fall because it's pushing towards a AAA game. It's still definitely a mobile game, but it's pushing the edges a little bit. This is a game that runs crazy well on the older M4 iPad Pro. Here, doesn't recognize the new iPad yet. So what it's doing is taking like a 720p resolution and spreading it out across this big screen. And it kind of looks horrible, not gonna lie. But I'm sure once it's updated, it's gonna look great. Also on a side note, Assassin's Creed Mirage has similar issues. It's capped to 30 frames a second, unfortunately. But if you wanna see how good a game can look in HDR, go and download this game anyway. The first part of the game is free, so there's no risk there. Crank up the settings just so you can see the contrast on this screen. See how good it can look. It is It is nice. Oh my gosh. I draw on tablets for a living, yet I haven't even talked about the Apple Pencil yet. Nothing has changed with the Apple Pencil Pro since last year, but that's not a bad thing because I think it was really, really good. So I'll do the too long didn't read thing again. It's great. It charges along the side of the device. There's some cool features here like barrel rolls and little context menus that they added last year. The pencil gives me really nice lines in apps like Procreate. There's very little lag. Pressure sensitivity is good. Initial activation rate is good. And as someone who loves to draw on these things, I love the iPad and the Apple Pencil. The M4 iPad has been my daily driver since it came out last year. And for me, I see no reason to upgrade here. For my daily tasks, that thing is still a monster. There's nothing that I am doing day to day that I can throw at it that this thing can't handle. In fact, the Apple Pencil experience, at least the core drawing experience, has not changed in the 10 years since the original Apple Pencil came out. And yes, it really has been 10 years since I said this in a video.
It feels more like a companion product to me.
Oh, how adorable. 720p. So nostalgic. It's kind of wild. I just used Wacom's Move Ink Pad Pro 14, an Android tablet, just last week. I use a lot of Android tablets. There's nothing wild about that part of it. But I came away from that loving the drawing experience just as much, if not more, than drawing on the iPad. And it has these little additional features that are just really catering towards the illustration end of using one of these tablets. Things like there is a matte screen on it. There's a full-blown Pro Pen 3. And I'm really thinking maybe that should be my daily driver. Time will tell if that sticks, but going back to the iPad after using the Wacom for a week, I did miss those things. Now, the main selling point, apart from that Pro Pen, is having the matte texture on the screen to draw. It just gives the pen more traction and just really improves the drawing experience. There are screen protectors that you can pick up for the iPad that will improve that will give you that experience. But the downside, and the main reason I haven't put one of those on my iPad, is that they do dull the punchiness and the colors of this Tandem OLED display. Like, that display is the best part of this iPad, and I don't want to take it away. Now, the Wacom is etched glass. It will dull the colors too. In fact, it definitely dulls the color. But an etched glass display is going to dull the colors of an OLED screen far less than a screen protector sitting on top of it. The other big thing with the Wacom is it has a second screen feature that works on Macs and PCs that basically turns that tablet into a Cintiq experience when you're plugging in with the USB Type-C cable. It is really, really good. I was shocked at how well it worked. It basically means that you're buying two tablets in one. You're buying an Android tablet you can take with you, and you're buying a Cintiq that you can use at your desk. The iPad does have a feature like that. It only works on Mac. It's a feature called Sidecar, but if I'm being honest, and I've talked about this in reviews in the past, I've never really enjoyed drawing on it. There's too much lag. There's just enough there that it dulls the drawing experience. And you can totally tell because you're drawing in Procreate and then you connect it to Sidecar, you draw in Photoshop or Clip Studio on the desktop and you're like, something's off. It could be hard to put your finger on it, but it definitely just doesn't feel as fluid as it does in native iPad apps. The Wacom really nails that. And as the dust settles in the coming weeks, maybe months, I'll definitely be doing a follow-up to compare that Wacom Move Ink tablet to this iPad. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, how do I get out of here? Hey, you! I'm stuck in this iPad. Can you get me out?
There's going to be some fire later. We're gonna need it to separate the exoskeleton from the frame.
Jerry, no! I'm still inside! If you like quirky tech videos mixed with cartoons, check out these. These are some of my favorite videos I've done recently. Peace. See you in a couple of days.